So if you're anything like me, a pretty unremarkable suburban white kid from the UK, then you probably really liked The Lighthouse. And if you clicked on this video, I'm sure you've seen it and know what it's about, but essentially two lighthouse keepers in the 1800s go crazy while isolated on this island together. And it's really good. It's one of my favourite films that I've seen this year and was a really good second film for Rob Eggers and cemented him as one of my favourite up and coming directors. So alongside The Lighthouse, I also quite liked his first film, The Witch. So naturally I wanted to find out if there's any plans for a third film, and what a surprise, he does. His next film, called The Northman, was announced, or I think it was leaked actually, which is kind of sad, a little bit before The Lighthouse came out way back in October last year. This film sees a departure from the New England setting seen in the first two films and instead heads to 10th century Iceland, back in the Viking days, which is very exciting. Although New England fans, it's okay, you don't need to worry. In an interview, Eggers said he wants to do more of what he calls New England horror adjacent folk stories, so you guys can relax. Iceland back in the Viking days is obviously a very different time period than New England, so it's gone off the rails a bit. But given his track record, I'm sure he's done all his research and is probably pretty much an expert on Icelandic Vikings by the time he came to writing the script. He stated in an interview for Collider that he's been thinking about how he can bring this set into life for the last 2 years, so he's got it under control. This film has been described as a Viking revenge saga, with the word epic being thrown around. It's about a son getting revenge on his uncle after he kills his dad and then steals his mum. It's actually got quite a few big name actors set to star in it. Well, I guess more like medium names. It's not as if The Rock or someone like that is going to be in it. Anyway, it's got two of the Skarsgård guys, Nicole Kidman and Willem Dafoe, along with some others as well, but none of these have actually been confirmed, I don't think. It's just been heavily rumoured, so it might all turn out to be fake. So I did some research, and apparently this film is based off some old Danish legend called Amleth, which is what Shakespeare based Hamlet off, which is kinda cool. The original version of this is set in Denmark rather than Iceland, and centres around a Danish prince getting revenge on his uncle, and also involves him heading to England and marrying the English princess. However, this film is set in Iceland rather than Denmark, and the Icelandic version of this story has two princes who work together to kill their uncle, rather than just the one. So it could be possible that both the Skarsgård brothers will play the two princes here, but then again, the film is called The Northman, not The Northmen, so it might not be the case. Anyway, in both versions of the story, the central character or characters pretend to be insane so their uncle doesn't kill them. Madness is a recurring theme in Eggers' work, as it was obviously front and centre in The Lighthouse, and the main character at the end of The Witch pretty much goes insane as she becomes a witch who are generally regarded to be pretty crazy. The guy said it was based off the Amleth legend is called Claes Bang, and he also said he's going to be playing the uncle, so this guy will seemingly be playing the antagonist who the prince gets revenge on. He said that this film will be very different from Hamlet, describing it as so fucking scary and bloody and more of a Greek drama. His words, not mine. It's also worth noting this will probably be a very loose adaptation of Amleth, just how The Lighthouse is a very loose adaptation of a Welsh story about lighthouse keepers. So all the Amleth fans out there, don't get annoyed if it's not exactly what you expect. So that's pretty much what you can expect for the story. Once again, this is just speculation based off rumours, so it might not be true at all. As I said before, this is set in Iceland at the turn of the 10th century, so around 900 AD, which was obviously a very long time ago. The Norse religion of Odin and Thor and that kind of thing was all the rage back then, with everyone wanting to go to Valhalla and die in battle and all that kind of stuff. So you can expect this kind of folklore to be a key part of the film, as Eggers just loves his folklore and it was a major part of both of his previous films. According to Wikipedia, these Vikings were apparently at the peak during this time and loved raiding Britain and France, and they took tons of slaves from there too. And these slaves actually made up a big portion of Iceland's population, alongside a bunch of Norwegians. These Norwegian guys were apparently just getting out of Norway as the king there was just really mean, and so a load of them just fled to Iceland to get away from him and brought their slaves with them. With that being said, Iceland was quite a new settlement at this time and had no formal overarching government, just a bunch of chiefs ruling over their villages. And these are the types of people and locations we can expect to see in the film. But in terms of cast, as I said, you've got Willem Dafoe, Nicole Kidman and two of the Skarsgårds, Bill and Alexander. It's also got Anya Taylor-Joy, who worked with Eggers on The Witch, and the guy who spilled the beans that is based on Amleth, Claes Bang. It's also got some randos from IMDb called Murray MacArthur and Ian Gerard White. Some of these cast members have roles given. So far the roles of Gunnar, Feng, Hakon and Thor Valdar have been cast. With Dafoe slated to play Gunnar, Claes Bang is Feng, and two of the IMDb randos playing Hakon and Thor Valdir. I don't really know who any of these people are, it's just names really to me, but if it is true that Claes Bang is playing the uncle like he said it is, then I guess the uncle is Feng. With all that being said, it is worth noting that IMDb isn't super reliable, as I think it can be changed by anyone, so who knows if this is true or not. But I'm confident that at least Willem Dafoe, Nicole Kidman, Alexander Skarsgård and Anya Taylor-Joy will end up being in the film. I think it's likely that Willem Dafoe is playing the dad, and Nicole Kidman will probably play the wife who gets stolen. If I had to guess, I'd say Alexander Skarsgård will be playing the main character, Amleth, And if they do adapt the part of the story where Amleth goes to England and marries an English princess, then maybe Anya Taylor-Joy will be playing her. A cast of this size will set the film apart from The Lighthouse and The Witch, which both had much less people in them, and indicates that this film will likely be on a much bigger scale. So now you know who you can look out for when the film eventually comes out. Obviously Eggers is writing and directing this, so it's very likely to have his signature attention to detail when it comes to the time period. It will be interesting to find out what kind of dialect the characters speak in, as surely it can't be an ancient version of Icelandic, and this ancient version of Icelandic would probably sound a little bit like this.
Dwyr fe, dwyja frænder, dwyr sjálfur ít sama. Ek veit ein at aldrei dwyr, dómur dauðan hver.
But I highly doubt this will end up being in the film, as I don't think any production company would fund a film on this scale to be in a language like that. Eggers even said this film wouldn't be in black and white even if he wanted it to be, because a production company just wouldn't fund it if it wasn't in full colour. Icelandic poet and lyricist John is also writing this. He's actually been nominated for an Oscar, but not for writing, instead for his work on the score for Lars von Trier's Dancer in the Dark in 2000. But he does have some previous writing credits, but they're a weird mix of Icelandic indie films and films that seem to be Iceland's answer to Disney Channel original films. But at the end of the day, he is from Iceland, so will probably help the film come across as more authentic. This film also sees Eggers reunite with producer Lars Knudsen, who he worked with on The Witch. This guy has worked on tons of films, but most notably Ari Aster's Hereditary and Midsommar. This may indicate a return to more of a horror genre, as Knudsen skipped The Lighthouse, which obviously had much less horror elements than The Witch did. And Claire Bang's comment that this film is bloody and scary obviously supports the idea this will be more of a horror film as well. So that's who is going to be behind the camera on the set of this film. As you would expect, production on the film is currently cancelled due to the pandemic. They're reportedly just days away from filming in Ireland with sets built and everything ready when they shut down, which must have been really annoying for them. But some work is still going on. There are regular meetings with all the heads of department and some select props and costumes are still being made, so the film is still very much on its way. It will probably just be a bit delayed, like pretty much every film at the moment. As I did mention before, this film is not going to be in black and white, but instead full colour, and Eggers said that the locations they're filming on have really nice colours anyway, so I'm expecting this film to look really good, but just not in black and white, which is fine. The production of this film is reportedly on a much bigger scale than Eggers' previous two films, with there rarely being a scene that isn't on a boat or doesn't have a lot of extras, with there being much bigger sets and a much bigger cast. This means that we'll probably see more locations in the film and more bigger set pieces, with them perhaps sailing to other countries or meeting new kingdoms or whatever. The shoot was expected to last 19 weeks, which is obviously a lot longer than The Lighthouse's 34 days. It's closer to the 154 days it took to shoot Avengers Endgame, and this longer shoot will certainly reflect the larger scale. So essentially, don't go in expecting the smaller, more intimate stories like The Lighthouse and The Witch. Instead, expect more of a larger story, more of a saga, which is what the film has been described as. So overall, we know that this is a film set in the 10th century Iceland, and it's been described as a Viking revenge saga. It will be on a much larger scale than the previous two films and has a much more star-studded cast. It's going to be filmed in Ireland, and they've already built some of the sets, but obviously production is on hold due to COVID at the moment. So obviously I'm looking forward to this and I'm sure it'll be great. It seems it's going to be quite different from the previous two films, and there's no release date yet, but it'll probably end up being sometime next year, but with the way things are going at the moment, who knows. It's really cool to see Eggers' take on Vikings, as there aren't many films from that time period, and if anyone's going to do it justice, it's probably him. So I hope you enjoyed me rambling on, and well done if you made it this far, so thanks for watching.